A lot of people say that LS swaps are played out, cliche, everybody does it, but let me tell you something. There's a reason, because for most people, it's cheap. Everybody talks about how cheap it is. Oh, LQ4, no shit. This will decimate all after you put about $500 in it or more overnight parts from eBay. LS swaps are a really affordable option if you want to upgrade your motor and make a lot of power. However, I'm going to go over the 5 unexpected costs that are associated with doing an LS swap, as well as some costs that are associated with doing an LS turbo swap and why it's not as quite as cheap as people make it out to be. Cue the intro. If you're new to the channel, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my build. But first, if you haven't been here before or you're interested in an LS swap or LS turbo swap, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. I got a whole build series that I have on this car, as well as some other cars that I'm featuring, and some new projects I'm happy to announce, hopefully very soon. So make sure you guys stay up to date on all my uploads. That way you can get them as soon as I roll them out. A little bit about this car. This is a 1994 BMW 325IS that I got a junkyard LQ4 engine out of a 2500 HD pickup truck for 400 bucks. I sold the accessories off the front and put Camaro F-body accessories on it, and I wanted a stick shift, so this actually has a T56 out of a Pontiac GTO. All that in there, upgraded cam and springs, and I have a Borg Warner SXE 372 turbo with a tile V60D wastegate. Hopefully I'm looking to make around 650 to 700 horsepower at the tire. Right now it's just on a base tune, still pulls like hell though. I'm not going crazy on it just yet, but hopefully we get to do that soon in a future video. Before I dive into what's really expensive and unexpected, I'm going to talk about what's expected. You can get a 5.3, a 4.8, or a 6 liter like this out of a junkyard for a couple $100. That is the cheapest part of the whole swap. You do have to worry about swap kits, and those vary in prices from a couple $100 to a couple $1,000. You also got to worry about tunes, what engine management you're going to use, and what intake you're going to put on the car. That's a lot of the stuff that people talk about. However, no matter what your swap you're doing, here is the top 5 things that are unexpected that do cost money. Depending on the car you're swapping, your fuel system might be outdated. You just want to have bigger fuel lines so you can make more power. So some of the things that people overlook are lines and fittings, especially AN fittings. There's a lot of places you can get them cheap, but they're still going to cost you money. I got all my AN fittings on this. I ran -8 from my fuel pump all the way to my fuel rails and to my fuel pressure regulator for 50 bucks for the whole kit that came on eBay. However, it comes with the lines, it comes with some fittings, but I still had to buy more. So I almost felt like I bought 2 or 3 of those just to make up for my fuel system. As you can see here, I ran -8 AN fuel lines all the way to the regulator and then down back into my return. And that is going all the way from the fuel pump. And hopefully that should be able to hold about 700 horsepower for me. You want to double check and make sure you're getting the right fuel line, the size for what you're going to need for your horsepower application and what your goals are for horsepower. Not to mention my oil feed for my turbo, which I did get a cheap one on eBay, and guess what? It leaked. It is what it is. I tried. I had to make my own AN fittings for my turbo feed. So this is PTFE line. You know, I made it so it fit perfect, but I thought I was going to be able to get away with that eBay line, and that did not work. Some swap kits that you're going to have are going to come with exhaust headers or manifolds to make things work. However, you're still going to have to make the exhaust out the back probably, and depending on how much power you want to make, you might have to get pretty wide exhaust. You can find 2.5-inch exhaust kits that come with bends, 90 degrees, and straight pipes on eBay. But especially with this car, I ran 3.5-inch exhaust out the back, and it was very difficult to find cheap bends, 45 degree and 90 degree. So I ended up spending a lot more than I thought on just the exhaust. Not to mention my flex pipes for my downpipe and my flex pipe for my hot side going into the turbo was also an unexpected cost, and I didn't want to cheap out on those things because I didn't want exhaust leaks down the road after I did all this work.
Also, depending on your application, you may be able to get away with 2.5-inch exhaust going out either bank. But for me, because I'm running a turbo, I needed 3.5-inch. And it's a big 3.5-inch pipe. And I wanted full exhaust out the back because I want it to be relatively quiet. And you can see the other V-bands that I have there. And there's the V-band there. So this whole downpipe can come off easily. Also, I got another flex going back on my exhaust system too. And I actually crushed this pipe so that it would fit. But even if I wanted to get an oval, it was gonna cost even more to do that. And I got a cutout. So other unexpected costs that I didn't think I was gonna run into. These flex pipes were about $45 each, and I have 2 of them, one on each side.
In addition to exhaust, you want to make sure that you can service the car without having to take everything apart. So the best way to do that is to have it to be able to come apart easily. So I got a lot of V-bands, and I wanted to get quality V-bands too, because if they get stuck or freeze on there, you're kind of screwed. So I got quality V-bands, which were a lot more expensive than I thought, and I got more of them than I thought that I needed because I wanted to make sure that I could take the whole exhaust off the car and service it if needed. And guess what? I've had to do it a few times.
And I got a bunch of these V-bands here, all going down. As you can see, I have another one here, so I can take the crossover pipe off easily. So these were, I think I paid $25 for 3 of them, but I bought 9 of them, so you add that up, $75.
Getting an engine from a junkyard is cheap, and it's great, especially once you're done dressing everything up like this. Nobody's gonna know the difference. However, getting an engine from the junkyard means you're probably gonna have to replace some things on it, like sensors. And it's best to do the sensors before you do the swap. That way you don't have engine codes, things going off. So it's better to do it before. Now for me, I didn't need a MAP because I'm going with a turbo, so I went with a MAP sensor. If you're going turbo and you're gonna have a MAP sensor, you don't wanna just get the Duramax one. You're gonna wanna get a true quality AC Delco one. That way it's gonna help your idle. I think that helps your idle. In addition, you know, throttle position sensor, crank sensors, camshaft sensors, NOx sensors, intake air temp sensors. There's a lot of sensors that are on this car that you're gonna wanna replace before you do your swap, as well as O2 sensors. And for me, because I have a turbo, I went with a wideband O2 sensor that's located below. So these are other unexpected costs that I wasn't seeing. The next unexpected cost that you're gonna run into is new bolts and hardware. Not only does it make it easier to take things apart and put them back together again, having new bolts and hardware, but it also looks better. So there were a lot of bolts on here that I got new. In addition to I got new starter bolts, new subframe bolts, but even the car that you're swapping, frame parts and subframe parts, you're gonna want to get all new bolts and hardware, and it does add up. It nickel and dimes you, but it does make it safer in the long run, as well as it makes it look a lot nicer too.
Final unexpected cost, which not everybody realizes, is especially if you're going to get a junkyard engine, is the front drive accessories. Now, if I wanted to run the truck intake would stick out about this high, and I wouldn't really be able to shut my hood. So that's why I got the LS6 intake. However, you really can't use this intake with the truck accessories. And for space reasons, the truck accessories actually stick out a lot further. So I ended up having to swap out for an F-body Camaro power steering pump, water pump, harmonic balancer, pulley, and alternator. So I had to get all new front drive accessories. Now I sold my old one, so I made some money back on that, but it's still a matter of having to buy everything else. So if you buy an LS1 crate motor or a true LS1 engine, they usually will have the the recessed accessories like that, but if you're gonna get a junkyard engine, you may need to do this. If you have a space in your car where you don't need to, or you don't care about how it looks, you can get away with, you potentially could get away with using the truck accessories. Another thing that people don't always realize is, depending on the car you're swapping, you might not be able to use the truck oil pan. As you can see here, this is not the truck oil pan, this is a F-body Camaro oil pan, and it comes down right about to where my subframe is. However, let's see if I can imagine here, if I had the truck oil pan, it probably would come down to here, which would be scraping on the ground. So yeah, if you have a big old car, maybe it might work, but for anything that's gonna be low profile, you're gonna wanna upgrade and get a oil pan that does not go down as far as the truck oil pan would.
I try not to consider my build a full sloppy mechanics build. If you're familiar with those guys, I kind of think it's a half slop. I did upgrade some parts for my turbo system that I hope will help the car last a little bit longer and will be able to build more power later on. The normal sloppy mechanics build is cheap and it's great, but it's about 550 to 600 horsepower is really where it taps out. So I got better injectors. I did get an upgraded wastegate. I got a Tile V60D wastegate specifically because I want to be able to run high boost and be able to hold it well, but I also want to be able to run low boost and have it hold it well. And the bigger the wastegate that you have, the better it can hold boost. So I upgraded my wastegate. I also got a Borg-Warner SXE 372 turbo. I could have got a sloppy style VS 7875, but I went with the Borg-Warner. I wanted something that's going to last a lot longer, or that I hope lasts a lot longer, and the rebuild kits on them are really cheap, whereas there's not really a rebuild kit for the VS 7875. You just kind of throw it away and buy a new one. I did get your cheap eBay intercooler, your cheap, eBay fake tile blow-off valve. So I did get some other cheap things. So that sums up the 5 unexpected costs that I ran into doing my LS swap. If you guys think I missed something, let me know. I'll definitely add to the next video that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do more videos really breaking down everything I did on this car. Hopefully I get to do a dyno day sometime this summer. So make sure you guys subscribe and stay up to date on the channel. If you guys have questions, always reach out to me. I know I have questions and I always ask you guys. So I always appreciate the going back and forth with you. And you guys are really helpful, and hopefully I can be helpful for you too. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.